I know this makes you mad, but you've got to do this, okay? Yeah. Let's talk about why psychology is broken. Before we begin, I want to clarify one thing. No, we don't think that the study of human behavior and mental processes is broken. What we do think is that some assumptions at the very core of modern psychology are rooted in sexism, misogyny, and homophobia. Okay, you know what? Yeah, maybe we do think that modern psychology is broken. We aren't experts of psychology, as I'm sure is evident, but it wasn't that hard to notice one trend amongst all of the thinkers that formed the foundation of modern psychology. They're all straight white men. And now I'm not trying to pull a Lily Singh on you guys, but do I really need to explain why that's an issue? One group, one privileged group in society, shouldn't be explaining why the entire human race thinks and behaves a certain way. Because that essentially means that psychology was mansplained to us by those people. Let's talk about one particular offender though. Dr. Sigmund Freud. Chances are you've already heard of him. He has done some impeccable work in the field of psychology. He has pioneered concepts such as id, ego, superego, concepts like the life and death drive. Freud's psychoanalysis has structured what we think of psychology as today. And in turn, it has impacted the way we view the human condition. Let's start with Freud's views on women. He believed that young girls between the ages 3 to 6 distance themselves from their mothers and devote all of their time and affection to their fathers because they hold their moms responsible for their lack of a penis. He called this the penis envy. I don't even know where to get started with that one. All I can say is that Freud definitely did not have a dick because anyone that Freud also caused some of the biggest myths about female orgasms. That there are two of them, clitoral orgasms and vaginal orgasms. He claimed that women could experience clitoral orgasms, however, the more mature and developed orgasms are vaginal orgasms. He even went ahead to say that women that desire clitoral orgasms are of lower moral character. And if that makes sense to any of you guys out there, let me give you an apt example. What if I was to tell you that guys can experience two kinds of orgasms? One, if you actually have an orgasm, and second, if your balls are tugged at aggressively. Kind of weird? Yeah. What if I then completely judged you and berated you for trying to correct me and furthermore told you that this whole testicular juggling was the correct orgasm to want? And it doesn't end there. What if the entire human race thought that forcing your balls to play hopscotch was the right way to go? Not fun, na? Yeah. The real life consequences of these theories are not at all funny though. Female genital mutilations were and are still conducted all over the world, even in India. Thousands of girls are subjected to these horrifying surgeries just because some male psychologists thought that the clitoris. Freud's most famous theory is arguably the Oedipus complex theory, which states that boys experience their first form of psychosexual development in the form of unconscious attraction to their mothers and hostility to their fathers. The opposite of this, the Electra complex, is when girls experience this unconscious attraction to their fathers. The history of this, however, is very dark. Many of Freud's patients suffered from hysteria, which is basically when a patient experiences sudden outbursts of extreme emotion. Freud noticed that a lot of his patients who suffered from hysteria reported sexual abuse and often named their fathers as perpetrators. So he drew a conclusion that sexual abuse in childhood led to hysteria in adulthood. That in itself isn't that problematic. The issue began when Freud felt uncomfortable listening to the repeated stories of sexual abuse perpetrated often by older male relatives. So instead of focusing on the long-lasting trauma that sexual abuse causes, Freud drew a different conclusion. He concluded that these sexual crimes committed by fathers or other father figures were actually just fantasies of seduction. And he even went ahead to say that mothers do the same to their sons, but males don't report this as sexual abuse because men are more rational than women and mentally more advanced than women. And hence they don't imagine abuse. Yeah. Sigmund Freud covered God knows how many sexual abuse cases of children. I wish I had a joke about this. I wish I could be sarcastic or snide. Anything but horrified. And what's worse is that it gets worse than this. Somehow, Freud's thoughts on homosexuality are even more terrible. According to him, homosexuality in men was neurotic but not problematic. The real issue, he thought, was lesbianism. He saw lesbianism as a mental illness. His logic behind that, or if you want to call his hairbrain bullshit that, was that men develop a moral compass in their life because of this constant fear of castration, and because women have nothing obvious to neuter, which makes absolutely no sense, but because women have nothing obvious to neuter, they remain amoral, and hence they have to be guided through life, first by their fathers, then by their husbands. Can we break for 5?
God.
Hence, lesbian women who essentially refuse to marry are amoral, and hence they are the most unstable and unworthy humans, and the fault of their lesbianism falls squarely on the shoulders of their fathers. However, Freud said that this lesbianism could be cured through psychoanalysis, and these conversion therapy techniques are still prevalent today. I don't want to blame him for his backwards thinking because I understand that he was a product of his time. But think about it this way. Freud essentially took everything that's wrong with the patriarchy, wrapped it up in nice psychological vocabulary, and told all straight men in the world that the suppression they supported, the beliefs they held, and the crimes they committed was all okay. It wasn't wrong, but it was inevitable. You know how every conversation you have with your parents about sexism ends with, "Arey, but things are changing, it's better than it was earlier." Freud created that mentality. And it's taken decades and generations of amazing women and people of the LGBTQ plus community to even shed light on that. I know we generally end our episodes on a very somber note, but you know what? We really want to answer the question, what can we do? There are some great psychological theories that have attempted to undo the damage Freudian psychology has done. So today, we're going to celebrate it. And I don't want to celebrate alone.
Well, you could start by reading the works of female psychologists like Karen Horney, who was the first woman to present a paper on feminine psychology at an international conference.
Yeah, she raised voice in the community against the fact that women were always defined in relation to men, and she was definitely also bullied for that unfortunate last name.
Or how about Eleanor Maccabee, whose work on differences in sexes led to her being the first recipient of an award named after her?
Wow, that's a fucking flex, isn't it? She also lived for 101 years, which... Why is this relevant? Who wrote this?
Read Mimi Philip Clark's work. She was the first black woman to earn a doctorate from the prestigious Columbia University and spoke about the intersectionality of race and sex.
Or if you really want to engage in some pettiness, read Anna Freud's work.
She was the first to refine child psychoanalysis into a distinct form of therapy.
She believed that children shouldn't be analyzed for sexual tendencies in their infancy, which was actually quite a controversial opinion at the time. Can you believe it?
Oh, I know you're wondering. Yes, she is related.
She was his daughter.
She was lesbian.
She was with her partner, Dorothy Burlingham, also a child psychiatrist for
54 fucking years. That's a photo of the two of them together, and though they may not seem like they're saying it, we're going to assume that they, much like us, have spent a lot of time hoping that Sigmund Freud and all of the psychologists that he inspired spend their time in afterlife getting their balls tugged at aggressively for a lot of time. That's our show. Thanks for watching.